Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. The other day I heard a saying that really clicked for me, and it was expectations are premeditated resentments. Expectations are premeditated resentments. And I think that clicked for me because I've experienced this. I think probably from both sides, both directed towards me and also me being resentful because I had expectations that weren't fulfilled. So I wanted to talk about that today. I think it's an interesting topic. The I think we've all experienced this on some level because ultimately it comes down to being an ego thing, And so let's break it down first of all. When we have an expectation that someone's going to do something or not do something, and it goes the opposite of the way we expect, and we're upset about it, but part of it is because it happened. But the biggest part of it, the part that upsets us the most, is that we had a vision of how it was supposed to be, an expectation of how it was supposed to be, an unspoken expectation, and it didn't go that way. See, the disconnect there seems to be the unspoken part. So we're going to dive into that a little bit and look at the value of, well, look at how to avoid that and the value of communication and other good tools here. The I'm going to do really three steps here. The first step is simply to be aware of your triggers, and it is a trigger thing. So when we look at this whole thing of expectations, ultimately what it is you at some ego level believe that things should be done a particular way, or something should happen, or something will happen. And when it doesn't happen, that person has let you down in your mind, right? From an ego perspective. Not a judgment, just looking at the truth of the situation as it is. Let's back up for a second. Have you ever had one of those moments? Try to think of a moment in your life when you've had that where you expected something to go a particular way. Think of anything, it doesn't really matter. But that when it didn't go that way, you were resentful. Can you think of something? I surely can. I surely can. And the reason I know this is an ego thing, by the way, is because the more work I do on my ego self, just diving into the ego work, peeling it back, recognizing where the ego's at work, the less this is a factor for me. So we're going to work on that with you a little bit too here today, if you're down for it. So think of that situation. In that situation, there are some triggers involved there. There are triggers that are setting up your expectation, or there are expectations that are setting up your triggers, rather. Your expectations are really putting you in a position to be disappointed. And when you do find yourself being disappointed, when you get to that point of resentment, what's happening is now that's triggered this thing, this story in you. We're not going to get too deep into that because that is an individual thing. That's something each one of us carries around. But if you can recognize what your triggers are, and if one of your triggers is, wow, this person, I need people to read my mind, and when they don't, it bothers me. That's not a them problem. It's a you problem. You see? So this resentment thing, that's us. That's about us. That's something that we can prevent ourselves from having the negative effects of if we're aware of it and stop setting ourselves up. See, the way we set ourselves up is to expect. And when the person doesn't follow through, we go, Step one, be aware of your trigger, right? Be aware that this is an issue. Step two is adjusting your expectations. See, now these don't have to be in this order, but these are two things that you can do as tools. Adjusting your expectations is as simple as, asking yourself, is this a realistic expectation? Is this a fair expectation? Is this an expectation that if it's not followed through with, is totally reasonable, that I should be upset and angry or pissed off, whatever, about? Or should you even be having that expectation? Is this something that is a little pie in the sky, that you're expecting somebody to do something that they don't know that you're expecting them to do, that if they don't do it, you're going to be upset? Again, becoming a me or you problem rather than a them problem. So those two things are a step in the right direction here. But most importantly, and so those are useful tools, but those aren't the big ones. The big tool, the biggest tool here is simply expressing your needs clearly. There's nothing more important in not getting disappointed, not getting resentful, than simply telling the other person what you're hoping the outcome will be. Okay, and there's a lot of pitfalls we can fall in here. I've had these conversations with people who have said, well, if I tell that person and then they do it, they're just doing it to please me, and it doesn't mean as much. Okay, but if you don't tell them and they don't do it, and then you're pissed about it, again, you can't blame them. But if you let someone know, okay, oh, we're going to do, let's say, okay, hey, we're going for a drive. I'm hoping that when we get there, we can go for a walk in the woods, rather than going, okay, we're going for a drive. When we get there, we're going for a walk in the woods. You're telling yourself, not them. Then you get there, and the other person's like, I don't feel like walking in the woods, and now you're upset about that, but you never expressed it. But if you express that on the front end before you even get in the car, well, now you've at least asked that question. You've set that expectation or that hope. Now, in that moment, this person might say, no, like my knee's bothering me, or I don't feel like walking today, or like I've got sinuses, whatever. I don't feel like walking today. Well, okay, maybe you're let down. Let's assume you're let down. Are you resentful? Hope not. But if you have to be let down or be resentful, I'll take let down over resentful any day of the week. Now that's only 50% of the 50% of the equation here, though, because the other half of the equation is that if you say that up front, oh great, I'm hoping when we get there we can go for a walk, and the person says, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Well, great. Now you've got a confirmation that that's the plan, and now you're going to go for a walk, and now there's no chance for resentment at all. You've removed any possibility of resentment simply by stating your intention or your hope or your desire. Simple communication. Now, why wouldn't you do that? Why would you not do that? Think of any excuse, reason, justification for not doing that. And then ask yourself, is that reasonable? Whatever that justification is. I don't know what that justification is, but it's there. You're telling yourself a story. Is that story completely true? Can you be 100% sure that that story is true that you're telling yourself? If not 100% sure that that story is true that you're telling yourself, express your needs clearly. It'll fix the whole thing. It'll take away any possibility of resentment because you're saying up front what it is that you're desiring. So again, you might get a little disappointment, but you've removed any opportunity for resentment. Now, if you don't want to do that, I've got some bad news for you. You have a need to be resentful. There's something in you that desires to be pissed. And that's bigger work you need to do. And that's okay. Because, identifying things like that, that's where the work begins, by simply going, oh, yeah, why is it that I want to be pissed? What is it about being resentful that fulfills me in some way or feeds some need, makes me feel shitty, but somehow I need it. That's an important thing to identify. So if you have a concern around that, reach out. Let's talk. I do coaching. Go to my website, use the link in the description, set up a call with me. We'll talk about it. And if you want to do some work around that, we can do some work around that. But that is a great thing to identify if you're struggling with that. Now, if you're not struggling with it and all the rest of this makes sense, let's keep going. The thing that's really important to remember about resentment is that if you don't deal with your resentments and you know that this is an ongoing problem, it creates stress. It creates like ongoing chronic stress. And there's a reason for this. It's purely a brain science thing because all the things that are triggered when you feel resentment are associated with pain and threat in your brain. They've done neuroscience research on this. The parts of your brain that light up during resentment are really fight or flight kind of things that tend to lean more towards the fight part. Pain and threat. Same brain centers as pain and threat. Think about that. And now this is pain and threat that you're allowing, though, if you consider this. If you are feeling resentful, that's a choice you're making. Now, it may be reflexive because you've done it so long, but it's still something you're allowing to happen versus someone coming up and sticking with something sharp, which is not a choice, right? Pain and threat. That's pretty hardcore. And you can see why that would be debilitating and why that might lead to chronic stress, that the fear of being let down, of feeling resentment, sets you up to feel more resentment and sets you up to have chronic stress around the possibility you might have resentment. But at the same time, you are the only one who has the power to actually change that. And you can only change that by actually doing the work, by continuing to allow yourself to go down these roads where you're setting yourself up to be resentful because your expectations are premeditated resentments. You're setting yourself up to do that you can choose to not do that. So don't do that. Okay. Let's talk about some tools you can use to start finding balance. You need to start finding balance, start moving away from this reflexive habit of setting yourself up for resentment. The greatest tool you can use is meditation. If you don't meditate yet, start meditating. And what this does for you, if you do meditate, meditate more. If this resonates, you're still having an issue with it. When you sit with yourself, you get a quiet mind, and you're even if you can't quiet your mind, and I know a lot of us struggle with that, with meditation, at the very least, you are getting grounded. You are getting sort of centered. You're getting to your core self. You're getting to where you're allowing your soul to open a bit, right? That spirit inside to just, mm, And when you do that, you shake off some of those sharp edges that you get. Like, we're talking about persistent resentment can lead to stress. You're shaking off some of that stress edge, those sharp edges of yourself that are presenting themselves through this concern that you're going to be let down once again. Meditation, that's number one. And do that consistently, 5 to 10 minutes a day. If you can, 5 to 10 minutes a day. Do this for 2 weeks, week and a half, at least a week. You do it for 10 days straight, I guarantee you'll see a change. 5 to 10 minutes a day, or 5 minutes a day, even better, morning and evening. But if you do this, you will see a change in terms of just your overall anxiety levels, right? And that'll allow you to actually look at these situations with a little less anxiety, be able to make more clear headed decisions around them, be able to communicate more easily, get away from the story in your mind that you're telling yourself that's keeping you from having clear, concise communication with the person who you feel is creating stress in your life. Because they're not creating stress in your life. You're allowing it to happen because you're premeditating a resentment accidentally. Okay. Another great tool that's also a nice companion to it is journaling. And I talk about journaling a lot for a lot of different reasons, but it serves so many purposes. Because when I first heard about journaling, I thought, well, an odd thing. Why would writing down what's going on inside of my head going to be useful to me? But what it does is it's one step away from talk therapy. And let me explain why talk therapy works. Therapy works because we will get in our head and we'll have the same conversation or discussion with ourselves, and we'll mull over an idea and look at it from 15 or 20 different angles, and we'll think we have an understanding of what we're thinking, or what's going on, or our take on the situation. But as soon as you sit down and let it come out of your mouth and put it out here, it's almost like drawing it on a dry erase board, trying to explain it to the other person. And in that moment that we start doing that, we will very often find that the math we're writing on this board, the explanation of what it is going on inside of us, is sometimes complete bullshit. Sometimes it's just little pieces of it are not well thought out, where you'd be like, oh, because of this and this, then yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. Those two don't add up to that. That's why talk therapy works. And this is why journaling works, because oftentimes when we write in our journal about what's going on inside of us, we can start to see little pieces of how our logic is flawed. We can catch ourselves and go, oh, I do that all the time. I have these Stacy conversations where I'm like, oh, Stacy, no, you got that wrong, man. Ah, and in those moments, I'm proud of myself, to be clear, and so should you be. When you catch yourself thinking in a flawed way, the reason you should be proud of yourself in that moment, kind of go, good job, is because now you can start changing that behavior. That behavior was what it was, but it doesn't have to continue to be what it is. You can make that choice, and only you can make that choice. There's no one else who can make those changes in us aside from us. So journal. And journal anytime you have a ripple in the pond, if something's going on inside of you and you get those internal ripples, something's bugging you, even it doesn't have to rise to some level of being pissed off or angry or crying. Just journal every night. This is what's going on in my heart. Try this for 10 days. Sit down, write in the journal, just this is what happened today. And very frequently, I've found that stuff will come out in the journal. Well, like, I got nothing to journal about. And I'll go and I'll write, and I'll be like, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in here that I'm not even acknowledging to myself. And what that does is it releases a lot of that stuff. First of all, you identify the things that you're thinking wrongly about. And second of all, it releases a lot of that stuff, because it's like when you vent to a friend and you get it off your chest, you're venting to your little foldable friend and you're getting it off your chest. So that's a great tool. Ultimately, what it comes down to, and I think this is the most important piece of this whole equation, all these pieces are important, but the most important piece is to remind yourself that this is not a change you can make overnight. Like anything else, it's going to take at least 30 days to start really having an effect on yourself in this, in terms of catching yourself with these premeditated resentments that are creeping in. Allow yourself just the love and the appreciation and the guidance to understand that it's going to be gradual change. It's one day at a time, stepping further and further out of the woods that you're in to that open meadow you're trying to get to inside of yourself. Be patient, be calm, be relaxed, do the work, be patient, be patient, be patient. It's gradual change. You fill the bucket a couple of drops at a time. Sometimes you get lucky and it's a couple cups at a time, but you got to fill the bucket. And the only way you do that is through change. So start doing that today. If you have any stories about resentments and about changing resentments, how you've done it in the past, how you've seen it done in the past, anything you can relate to here, or things that you would disagree with, please share those with us in the show notes. Your journey is important to everyone in this community, and the shares I'm seeing are really beautiful. That people are sharing from a really deep part of themselves. We've got some wonderful followers on here who are able to really open up. And I really love and appreciate that with you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching the channel. Keep watching for more videos. If you haven't checked out the Soul Podcast yet, check it out. You can listen to it everywhere that podcasts are found. That audience keeps growing, and a big part of that is the fact that you guys keep going there and you keep directing your friends there. Thanks again. I'll talk to you real soon.